Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everybody. How are you? Oh, my sweet Jesus. Pictou, Nova Scotia, my love. It's late for you. You ready to start watching the Olympics? I'm gonna pin me to the middle here for a second. Hold tight. Cam loops. I'm gonna get you up nice and high so I can see all your faces. Turn on your cameras if you feel it. If you feel it. If you feel it. Um, Get there. Oh my God, you're amazing. You're amazing. Okay, how do I do Desi, what I really want is a like the gallery so I can see all the faces. Can you make me a gallery? Westlock, you can't show your face. Okay, got it. Um, Hello Moncton, hello Winnipeg, Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. Hi Jody, looking forward to spending the next hour with you. Listen, me too, Georgie. I just shut off the rest of my world so I could be in here. This is my safe place in this little office. Mm. And I got to tell you, it is increasingly the name of the game around here, where we're like, how do we hang on in this disastrous shit show? Of a mess. So if you're feeling confident and competent and like work is just like frolicking and you just really love people, this isn't for you. If if you feel a bit throat punchy, if you feel like what the fuck is happening in the world, you've landed in the right space. This is for you and me, okay? Because I'm feeling
Sorry to
very much.
interrupt, but there's no
Oh,
audio on this end, and a few other people have said that as well.
son of a bitch. Okay, hang on. Some people are saying it's good. I wonder, Des.
I'm in here, Jode. I can
Hi,
hear
babe.
everything. Your levels are great. You gotta tell people to turn up their speakers or try reconnecting their speakers. I'll add some notes in there.
Okay, good. We have some audio, so great. If you don't, this is I'm going to do this. If you don't have audio, shut down and come back in. Huh? Okay, good. So just check the notes, the chat section. Then we'll work through it too. Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Blossom. We got the whole team behind if you need some help. I'm also Des, if you can still hear me too, can you put on a gallery? And if you can't do that for me, I can try that here. If you have your camera wants to be on, that would be great. If not, I understand. But it really makes it easier for me to know when I'm like saying good things or like kind of fucking it up. You know what I mean? I'm gonna see if I can change it. Got it. Holy moly, you saucy chickens. There you are, Gloria. Lovely. Oh my God, Nicole. Beautiful. Okay. Now, listen up. What's going to happen is a couple of things I probably should have said. I might swear. Mm. And so if you've got little people or you're concerned about this, or if you're using this as a PD, I understand and I profusely apologize. There is a reason behind the way that I operate, mostly because what we're going to talk about tonight could be life-changing and maybe even life-saving. And so sometimes you can't say words like, shoot, darn, this is really hard. Sometimes you have to be like, I'm fucking done. You know what I mean? It just sort of changes the context and it lands a bit different. So I know that's a problem for some people, and I respect it all day long. So that's how it's going to go. Okay. Two, I want to welcome you into this clinical workshop. It is about strong teams don't avoid burnout, they build in the bounce back. We're going to take some time. I have so much content for you tonight because this is so heavy on my heart right now. Most of the work I'm doing in the organizational space is really around not how do we make life easier, but how do we just change the perception in a time where the human operating system has not advanced. The workplace that we show up to every single day is exponentially different. Even in 5 years, every operating system that we are involved in is remarkably different. You know what isn't? The human operating system. And we are exhausted and overwhelmed, generally speaking. Okay. So we're going to take that into context, but I want to just sort of welcome you in on this territory in which I'm coming to you from. Every time I speak, I say this. Everything I created for you tonight, where I'm sitting today, is on Treaty 7 territory, which is home, which was and is home first to the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, and the Métis District 3. And everything that we're going to talk about tonight comes back to acknowledgement, and mostly about our inability to do that when our systems are overwhelmed. So let's take it from there. Again, this is just meant to be psychoeducational. This is not a therapeutic experience. We are going to have some question and answers at the end. What's so critically important to me in these workshops is that you get a list of resources so that I know you got shit going on, kids running in and out. Somebody's got to get picked up from practice. You might not get the whole thing. So you get a whole 7 days to watch it, and you get a list of resources. Okay. For most organizations, what I'm talking about a lot right now is how do we repeatedly step into this conversation? How do we come back? Any of you who have worked with children or have parents, it's the same conversation. You will never arrive. It's the reset. It's the reset. It's the reset. And imagine trying to reset when you're on fire. You know, it's a bit tricky, huh? I'm like, just reset, bitch, just breathe. And you're like, I can't. So we're going to just slow it down before we even start tonight. Okay. So wherever you are in this moment, I'm going to get your nervous system back online. So we can just sort of take in as much as you possibly can tonight. So wherever you are, I love it that some of you are like snuggled up with blankets, or you have a good coffee or a tea, or, you know, maybe close your door if you can, or whatever else you have in your cup. I want you just to really pay close attention to where your shoulders are in this moment. If you can give me, this is my favorite quote right now, an undivided attention is the most generous and rarest form of love. And it is the thing we have to do to ourselves right now. So if you can actually set your phone aside, if you can turn off your email notifications, I mean, that's going to be a lot of fumble fucking around, so don't worry about it. But like, even just turn your phone over if you can, so that you give yourself a little bit of a gift just to sort of sink in for a minute. Okay. So drop your shoulders with me real quick. We get an hour together, and it's a safe place to be able to talk about some hard things. But I want your nervous system to know this is nothing you have to do. You don't have to do anything different or solve the world. You're not that good. Okay. Neither am I. So we're going to just do the next best right kind thing together. So drop your shoulders, wiggle your toes, and pay close attention to your jaw. I want you to try to unlock that as much as you can. So drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth. All my speech paths are like, no, get your tongue up there. Just put it in a very gentle, like, drop. Okay. And most people, this happens sometimes. People are like, I'm like, no, I don't want to see your fucking tonsils. I want you just to settle a little bit. Okay. And what that indicates to your nervous system, it might even make you a little bit sleepy. What indicates to your nervous system is that you can take in information. You don't have to hold anybody right now. Okay. Okay. So, what we just opened with is this, that the world isn't slowing down. Burnout isn't the exception anymore. It's becoming the expectation. And I really want to hit this home, that it's becoming the expectation of, like, this is what the cost of working means, is that it's supposed to be difficult. And it's costing us our best people, our systems, and our families, what we're bringing home. And that, for me, in a world where many of us do such good and honest and holy work, is simply not worth it. Particularly if you are in a place where you serve humans. If you understand, you know, and most of us do, if you are in a human services profession at all, which is 99% of us, okay, particularly if you're worried about other people's hearts or walking them through hard things, our work should not kill us to the degree that is these days. And, you know, my background would be, you know, I worked 10 years in a locked psychiatric inpatient unit for kids, the hitters, the kickers, the biters, the ones that tell you to fuck off. I love those babies. Those 10 years were the hardest and probably the best of my life, mostly because I had a remarkable team that was ridiculously funny. And that's sort of some foreshadowing in terms of how I know when things are not going well. You lose access to laughter. So let's back that up a little bit. So burnout these days for all of us, why it feels worse now and why you're not imagining it. I'm going to give you some data. So as I do in any of these workshops, I'm going to rip your soul out and put it back together. Because what most people want is me to jump to the fix. And I'll tell you from any therapeutic example, if I start to jump to the fix and tell you what to do, you go, yes, but we already tried that. I already know that. Oh, is this all this is about? I didn't realize I didn't sign up. That's not what. So you can't address what you don't acknowledge. Here's the reasons why we're overwhelmed and burnt out. Okay, why generally on average 50% of us, 1 in 2 would say, I've never felt this burnt out in my career in this moment. Part of that, it used to be saved. Burnout used to be saved for those really high intense jobs like medics or firefighters, even police officers, where like the thought of burnout really synonymous with like death and dying and like severe like emergency services like this. Da, 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 okay. Now 50% of all people, which means that across profession, if I'm having a hard day because I'm single-handedly saving the people of Canada, and I come home to my personal husband who's working in agriculture and he's also burned out, who's going to say what's going to happen? And then we get into a fight. Oh, he's like he's exhausted. The dairy industry is so stressful right now. Okay, the feeding of the cows is just it's too much. And I'm like, you think that's bad? I'm saving children of Canada. You want to go? I'll tell you who's got it worse around here. So the places where we used to land to fill us up are also becoming not only non-existent, but equally as stressed. And so the issue isn't for me that the work is getting harder or getting, undoable. We're wired for humanness. We're wired to do the hard things. We just were never wired to do it when there was no place to put it down. And so I love this part. Like it's not your workload, it's our ability or lack thereof to rest and reset. And chronic work stress isn't successfully managed. Chronic work stress that isn't successfully managed is the soil that burnout grows in. And the workplace has become more complex, faster, more always on. The World Health Organization explicitly describes burnout as resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. Now, that sounds like a blame game to me. It's like, you're just not managing all this new stress very good. Okay. You guys need to be better at that. Okay. Let's just take a little look at what has happened over the last decade of those of us doing work in any sort of industry. We are the first generation of employees where people have this much access to us. We are the first generation of leaders where our employees and our clients, our customers, our children, our students, our whoever have that much access to us. Think about that. I say this all the time. My dad, who many of you know I just buried recently, was such a people person and he was so engaged. I watched him. I had a front row seat to him building relationships. And he loved people to the end of his life. I am 50 years old, a clinical psychologist by training. And generally speaking, I want to throat punch most people. Okay. I used to like people. I spent 13 years post-secondary education studying human behavior because I think humans are fascinating. Now, I don't really like them. I have a very select few who I enjoy. Why? Because everybody's chippy. That's not how we were designed. We were not designed for this much noise. My father would come home from work and nobody could get him. You and I come home from work and we have access to everybody and everybody has access to us. We're checking our email to try to get ahead of things. We still got our watch on. Our teams are buzzing us. Our clients are calling us. And then I got to get somebody to practice and pick somebody up and the team snap bitches are going mad and everybody's saying something and like, and we're into playoffs now. And so you watch it when you go into that rink, somebody's going to, Like, where is the time for us to just be like, okay, let's settle this system and come back home? Okay. So even as I talk about these things, I want you to watch your shoulders. And even as you're listening to me, you're going to be multitasking because we're really good at this. Many of you will be, not all of you, right? You got Block Blast on your phone. You got the Olympics going on in the background. You got email notifications coming, checking up. You're just flipping through Instagram to see what the hell happened with Bad Bunny. Okay. And all of that data is indicating even subconsciously to your system, holy shit, things are bad. Ice. Oh, not ice. Are we icing people out? Are we ice fishing? That's a new term I heard today, ice fishing. Anyway, I got to tell you about that later. Okay. So the idea is there is an undeniable amount of information coming into your sweet nervous system. And managers are carrying a brutal load. Global engagement has declined, and Gallup reports would indicate that manager engagement has fallen. And so, what happens when our nervous systems get overwhelmed is we start to do this. We don't reach out more, huh? We don't be like, you can imagine if any of you have been in a state of grief, right? You're not just like, this is a time where I'm just like, let's talk to everybody. We're just like, we collapse in on ourselves. We further perpetuate the issue. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, like, if I could just get a cabin in the woods, okay? And you have to trek in with snowshoes. You understand? I don't even know snowshoes, but I'll buy them if I need them. And I just want nobody, I don't want to talk to nobody, I want to see nobody, I want to talk to nobody. Maybe two people, huh? And what's interesting is that like we actually can create that. We just don't. We just can't. We're not that good in this new system of trying to figure out how to deal with the overload. So burnout isn't a personal failure. Let me just be very clear about that because I think this is the blaming when we start talking about how we manage our system. It's not a personal failure. It's a system signal. It is a system signal to me that in whatever organization you're in or whatever team you're working on right now, we have not spent enough time figuring out personally or systemically how we build space for you to continue to do this amazing work. Okay? Full stop. That matters to me. I don't care about the kids you serve. I don't care about the clients you serve. I don't care about your customers nearly as much as I care about you. And that is a massive switch in how we understand organizations. We have been trained to believe that the customer's first, that they're always right, that the kids we're serving matter most. Kids matter. I mean, every school division I've been in, kids matter, kids first, which is right. But the only way we get there is if we look at it like this: you, your teams, and then the people you serve in that order. And I think let's just define burnout and why we're sort of in this place. The clear definition. So the World Health Organization has put one out. The ICD-11 has one. It's an occupational phenomenon. It's not a medical condition in North America. This is untrue. In other places, it is considered a diagnostic. There's a diagnostic category, not in North America at this time, but it has three dimensions. Okay. So if you were to looking to see if somebody's burnt out, it's this: emotional exhaustion, number one. This is based on Freudenberger's study in this is like 50 years old. Okay. He said, here's the three things you'll notice. And it still stands true to these days. Number one, emotional exhaustion has set in, which would indicate to me that your nervous system has been so heightened in the last little bit around work or either what's going outside of work and what's taking in that you are tired to your bones. Not just like it's any given Wednesday, we got to get through Q1. We've got a really tough caseload. It's like most any day. We thought we were going to be better after Christmas. No. Okay. Emotional exhaustion means you're tired to your bones. And even if you sleep, you wake up tired because you're not refueled. Does that make sense? This means yes. Okay. So emotional exhaustion, number one. Okay. Many people can be like, yes, I can feel that. I can't even shut my nervous system off. I can go to sleep and I know I'm exhausted. I fall asleep and 2 hours later, I wake up like this. Where's this email? What's going on? Did I do that? Should I be married to my husband? Like little shit that, you haven't actually thought for many days that you start to then spin about in the middle of the night. Your nervous system is in that heightened state, which is really not allowing your body to rest. Okay. Two, and you guys can really appreciate this. What happens when you're tired? Have you ever seen somebody who's really exhausted? How do they interact with other people? Right? They're chippy. I mean, I think about this all the time when a toddler misses a nap. Assholery-ish. Yeah? So are you. We are the first generations of employees and employers that have been this sleep deprived. And it's something we're not talking about. We feel like justified to sink into our phones or Netflix or any other conversation that numbs us out at the end of the day. And that constant stimulation of our minds, designed specifically to keep us there, right? If I was scrolling through Aaron's phone, I'd fall asleep right away because it's cattle sales and fucking golf clubs, I'd be like, I'm out, But on mine, holy, I mean, every Olympic stream you could possibly imagine, every take on Bad Bunny, I am so interested in who's saying what about what, and I want to miss it. What is happening with Guthrie's mother-in-law? I mean, mother, who abducted her? I am obsessed. Savannah Guthrie. And so when we are invested in some of those things, Dateline, Jesus, I got every Dateline update going, which also decreases, I mean, regulates our nervous system. Why wouldn't you go to bed with a crime scene podcast in your ear? You know, your body doesn't know that you're not hanging out with Vanessa in Tennessee. She's going to the bar alone and she's going to die. And you're invested. Your body doesn't know you're not in Tennessee, but there you are, snuggled in your bed. You got your snacks, and you're gonna spend 136 minutes of your life. Why would you sleep? Your body's like, we gotta see if she's gonna make it, and you know she's not. No, Trina, you shouldn't do that. Dateline in your bed is not a good choice for your nervous system. Okay? At least once or twice a week, sure, but every night, no. Or like me, you watch Narcos, the greatest Colombia drug dealer of all time. Huh? You're cheering for him. Pablo Escobar. That's not a good choice. Okay? You know what else isn't a good choice? I've just learned this week. There's, never mind. Okay. So emotional exhaustion leads to a lack of compassion, leads to the third thing that Freudenberger talked about, which is your give a shit is broken. You get into a place where cynicism, your ability for professional efficacy is decreased, which really, like, what is the point? The system is so big and so broken. Why am I even here? It drains every piece of purpose and passion. And that breaks my heart. Because I sit with people every day, all day, who are doing phenomenal work. And I don't care in what industry or organization, when you are a mortgage broker walking people through some of the biggest decisions of their life, when you are hanging on to kids in the foster system, when you are working in the music industry, you give me anything, and I will tell you why you're not only changing lives, you're saving them. And when it feels like that work is futile, that's what busts my soul a little bit. Okay. So it is a psychological syndrome, if we want to get really technical, but it's emerging most recently. It's always been there, but we're seeing such an increase in it because it's about a prolonged response to chronic interpersonal stressors on the job, typically involving these three things: of an emotional exhaustion, a lack of compassion, and then your give a shit is broken. And when you put those three things together again and again and again, what we seem to see is it's not just tired. Okay. It's when rest doesn't restore you and the parts of you that care start to go offline. Okay. Does that make sense? The parts of you that care, that's the best part of you. That's who you are. If I were to get your best friend to tell me what is great about you, how would they describe you? If you think about some of the best work you've ever done in your life, how would they describe you? You know, if you think about the 3 kids, cases, clients, you give me fill in the blank, who were lucky to have you, how would they describe you? That's the part of you that I want to get back to. And that is the part that burnout steals every time. Okay. If we make this an entity, that's what it's doing. It's taking away all of that good stuff. And it's that here's the myth. Myth number 1, burnout is about long hours. Not true. We're wired to do incredibly hard things and incredibly hard shifts, and that's okay. The truth is, it's often about chronic misfit between demands and resources, workload control, reward community, fairness, and values. The bar is also increasingly higher, lower, depends on what we're talking about. We used to be able to, when there was at least, not used to be able to, but I think about it like this. You know, we are one generation away of having a day of rest built into our week. We are one generation, even a half a generation out of people not being able to get us, of, enjoying refilling time with systems who love us on the weekends. Or in the evenings, playing cards with the neighbors, having dates, doing things with our family and friends. And now there was enough room for that, and that would be refueling. Now we typically shy away, or not typically, but we tend to shy away with spending time with people who refuel our soul. We're too tired for it. Okay. And so it's not about the long hours. It's truly about your ability to rest that nervous system and fill it back up again. Um, Here's the second myth: self-care fixes burnout. Not true. Self-care helps, but culture and systems drive the bulk of burnout risk. And this is where your bubble baths are lovely, right? Like, I remember being in a bubble bath once, like doing the fucking thing that somebody told me to do. And I was like, I'm going to get electrocuted because I got my computer in here. I'm in the tub. You know what I'm doing? I'm doing what they said, but I also got shit to do. I also think this is very true when you can drink all the kale, you can do all the yoga, you can, be working out. And I really want to teach you tonight about the difference between sort of distracting yourself from work and regulating your nervous system. There's two very different things that happen in that place. Okay. So I still want to just, okay, let me just give you these. So take those three things about the theory. This is how they show up in real time. Okay. And I put this in your handouts just so you can take a look at this. But this is sort of like a symptom profile that I just kind of pulled out, that this is what I would be looking for, or I'm thinking about what you look for in yourself or others. And so behaviors, and again, this isn't a checklist per se. It's just a list of things you can note in yourself or your team. Any one of these things happen all the time. Like this isn't like, "Ugh, I got the burnout." Okay. This is just like, this is what starts to happen when a nervous system starts to go offline. Things like doing the bare minimum, withdrawal, and increased sick time. I often ask organizations to give me a look at, what does your sick time look like? What does your mental health days look like? We would do this quite often with schools. And, like, if you really love your job, we will do everything we can to be there and show up for people. But if there's a need to sort of increase that rest time, it's like, we should be tracking that. I need to know that, right? What is the reason? An irritability, sharpness, or a short fuse, that really indicates to me, right? Like this is happening. Now, does that happen sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. We're all normal, right? But think about when I start to lose access to the best parts of myself, what starts to happen? Procrastination, task paralysis. I really don't like this word, but I used it in here, which means that we just sort of get stuck on things, and mistakes. Mistakes like you're just sort of noticing, or that, other people are like, Are you good here? You know? And again, this is just when we are dysregulated, we lose access to the best parts of us. Numbing. So scrolling, substances, binging. Are we doing a job of sort of trying to escape from this? One thing I notice that people do a lot in the run of the day, and I want you just to flag this, and we'll talk about it again at the end, is taking your phone to the bathroom. Oftentimes, the break that we have in the day is actually when we need to, generally speaking, most of us, at least 2 or 3 times a day, use the bathroom in our workplaces, whether that be at your home or in an office. Do not take your phone with you. That is the time where you are supposed to regulate your system. Pay attention to your body. Do you know? I think I said this in the last workshop. There's an increase in hemorrhoids globally. It's a real live statistic. I'm not just making this shit up. Because people sit there for hours. They're so goddamn excited. It's quiet. Nobody could get them. How many times have you lied to your children? What are you doing? Peeing for, 45 to 50 minutes. You know what I mean? Just checking out the world, playing Heyday. Made a big mistake getting back into Heyday over Christmas. Bad choices all around. Anything that distracts us. Block Blast. I got some flippy game. Like, wow. Okay. Now the Olympics I'm obsessed with. So I spend a lot of time just checking on my people, But even that little reset of however long it takes you to go to the bathroom, 30 minutes, 30 seconds, 1 minute. It's some of these things we're going to talk about at the end of the show tonight, just to really pay attention to where we can refuel our things. Cynicism, you notice in terms of behaviors, what's the point? Nothing changes here. Like that, sort of some of the behaviors I'm looking for. So you'll see that in the handout. Steven, you're pretty funny. Android rhymes. I mean, we can do a whole meme here with androids and hemorrhoids. Anyway, 2, feelings. Here's what I'm looking for. Not a checklist, but I'm really thinking about this. Dread, heaviness, resentment. When that stuff starts to set in for me, I know, Brene Brown taught me this a very long time ago. If resentment starts to show up, I'm saying yes too many times. And if I set boundaries successfully, absolutely. Yes, I will be here for you. I will show up for you. Absolutely. I don't check my email after 6 o'clock, or don't worry. I'll be back right back in there at 8:30 in the morning. When I start to feel resentment, that's a big trigger for me that I'm just too tired in whatever uh, season I'm in. Okay. Now, does resentment set in sometimes? Yes. It's one of those little things I want you to pay attention to. Hopelessness or emotional flatness. One of the things I think I see a lot in organizations that I get to speak to is a little bit about let's instill hope again. And we're going to talk about that at the end of the show. I've never been more hopeful about organizations right now. It's never been easier to be successful in an organization than it is in this moment. Mostly because the bar is so fucking low. Okay. Because the bar is so low. You actually don't even have to be great. You just try to be a little bit greater than the next guy. And they're like, you're in. Fuck. Here's a raise. People are like giving you good reviews and stuff. Like literally. Okay. So there is hope. We're going to get to that in a second. Three, guilt, shame. I should be able to handle this. And this is the part that really worries me a little bit about those of us in sort of the people caring business is I used to be able to do this. These cases used to not burn me out so bad. I used to be able to handle the kids. I used to be able to, what is wrong with me? Okay. Guilt, shame, all that stuff. Let's really hang on to that. Let me remind you that in any given day, any of these things you have on your plate, you can handle. It is the combination, the addition of, the piling on of where we've taken no breaks or very little that makes even this kid finally make you snap, or this one feel exactly too much, or this particular case, like, why is this the one? Okay. So let's just be really clear. This isn't about us, generally speaking. We are in a season where we've never had this much go on, many of us at the same time. Okay. And detachment from the work, from the people, from the purpose. Okay, that's some of the feelings that really start to show up, right? Okay, and then if I'm looking specifically at the body or the nervous system, and I often we're calling this in some of the organizations we're working with neurophysiology literacy, physiological literacy. As a leader, what am I paying attention to in meetings? And of course, the prerequisite to all of this is I'm getting you to take a beat, a breather before you head into meetings so that I have access to the best parts of you. And then what I'm looking for in other people are things like, or even in myself, is sleep disruption. I can't fall asleep, early waking, unrefreshed. I mean, that's 98% of us, right? Sleep is becoming some of the significant issue. And that is my number one intervention. I always ask people, how's your sleep? If I can correct or attend to anything when somebody's super, super struggling, that's the first thing I want to get back on board in some capacity. Okay. So what are we doing to make sure that we're giving you the best shot at sleeping, that we're disconnecting from screens, we're going for a walk outside, we're doing a little bit of a candlelight chat. I started this thing called the fireside chat with my dad, who is no longer here, and the nights that I need it the most, I light a candle and I chat to him. How do you 5 minutes? Okay, this does not need to be big, but how do we refuel this holy work that's happening in you right now? And sleep disruption, getting yourself ready for that piece is so fucking important. Headaches, gut issues, jaw tension, racing heart. Okay. I have a intimate relationship with my dentist. Not, I should be very careful about that. A personal relationship with sorry, Dr. Craven. That's not what I meant. Uh, um, this, the increase in TMJ, is a real thing because we hold so much of what's happening right here. I'm showing you my general section where I hold it right here. Wired and tired. I love this phrase because we are wired for sound and we are exhausted. It's a very new phenomenon because you can be both things at the same time, because your nervous system thinks it's got to fight and your body is like, just let me fucking sleep. Please just tell me it's safe and it's okay. Can you give me that indication? And there we are scrolling through all the reasons it shouldn't go to sleep, through all the reasons why, your kids are not going to be safe in the future, why you should leave your partner because they're a useless piece of shit anyway. Like all of those things are happening as you're there, and you're just like, God, and I need to drink collagen. Okay, so I want us to think about this really as a nervous system issue. Okay. So, workplace clues at the team level. I just want to point this out to a little bit. More conflict, less humor. More conflict, less humor. And I don't mean like the toxic, like everything's good. Woo! Oh my God, I love it. It's so great to be here. I'm talking about the belly laughter. I'm talking a place of us being able to, um, being able to have this conversation. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat a little bit. Yes, family farming. I mean, I spend a lot of time in agriculture right now talking about this. There is absolutely downtime. There is a wait time that we can build into every single situation. And Stephen, I'm gonna address that a little bit more specifically. I grew up in the ranching life, and there is not a place where we can't talk about how we reset here, right? And so let me come back to that in a second. So more conflict, less humor. That's what I'm looking around. Is this stop being fun? Right? Is there any point? And people are like, how can it be fun on a locked psychiatric inpatient unit? I just spent this most of this week with Jeremy Allen, who's a funeral director, in the midst of some of the biggest grief I've sat in for a very long period of time, and there was joy. And I really want to highlight the importance of even in the hardest and the heaviest work that we do, there is this sense of joy that needs to be, we need to just draw attention to it. Most vulnerable emotion on the planet, joy. People stop bringing ideas. Okay. So this was a thing about a year ago, quiet quitting. And it really just is for me, when you're exhausted, guess what you also lose access to? Innovation, creativity, new ideas. Somebody sitting around the table going like, "Hey, you know what I was thinking? Let's try this with this kid." Or, "Hey, if we want to look if we want to look a little bit different on the market, let's think about this. I know every farming organization is doing this. They're not inviting the breeders into to take a look at the cattle anymore. Let's host that. Let's do that. Let's get some coffee. Let's do the thing. Like those innovation, that creativity. Like how can we use AI to make us to get our more efficient in putting out our social media? How do we fact check with whatever? Okay. And some of those ideas will be dumb as they've always been as we sit around and sort of brainstorm in teams. But what I'm concerned about is the paucity of dumb ideas, the lack thereof of people coming up with stuff because they just are excited about it. And that's what I love about creating spaces where you're just like, yes, okay. And I remember some of the toughest kids we would have ever had in our cases, or some of the, hardest ones, in the police world. It was like if you had one, if you had two people who were like, I love this kid. No, 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 no. I think we can get him. I think we can get him. Here's what I'm thinking. Here, like, let's try, this sense of like, how can we have that shared bit of joy or optimism that just sort of does it? And be very clear, I'm not talking about the toxic positivity of like Mary Poppins. Okay. Everything's going to be fine. It's so fucking good. Whoop to do. And we're swirling in our rainbow skirts. No, 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 no. Two very different things. Okay. And I think that's really critical. I also really increase errors, safety slips, missed handoffs. All of those things are indicating to me that we're missing the best parts of people. Okay. When I'm on my game, all of those things are readily available. And then, again, this is the easiest to track. And a lot of people don't. High turnover intention, which doesn't necessarily mean they're leaving, but there's a high turnover intention, constantly checking, how do we get the ever loving Jesus out of here? Like, that's when you're playing with one foot out the door. I mean, and I want you to advance your careers. I want you to think big and dream big and do all those things. When for long periods of time, it prolongs your ability to be all in with your team. Everybody feels it. Right. And then it's like, okay, so how do we then create it to be a place that doesn't feel like that? So that checked out energy. I'm late, my arms are crossed, my eyes are rolling, all the things. I have a teenager like that, actually, it just reminds me. But it's this idea that it becomes very hard to go all in when that's the general energy. And so much of us, how do we take responsibility for that in a little bit? So again, I just added in here an important nuance. So burnout overlaps with depression and anxiety for some people. So there's active debate in the literature about where burnout ends and depression begins, which is why assessment and support matters, which is why we're really trying to sort of, I think many workplaces are doing a good job of like, system support networks and, can we go to a professional to sort of really assist in this process? But generally speaking, what I want to be really clear about is the cost is fantastic. And that's the thing that keeps me up at night a little bit. Burnout is associated with poor sleep. Shocker. So systematic reviews in healthcare workers and, broader healthcare risks really indicate to us that like everybody is really paying the price for the jobs that we do. And buddy, like it's not worth it. This is a job. Do you know the most important people you work for? I don't know why I'm whispering. The ones you go home to. You're just going to give these life-sucking people, I'm just kidding. You're just going to give these amazing humans that you work with and work for the best that you can on any given day. You're going to do the next best right kind of thing. And I really, putting that in, if your job is a mom, same rules apply. This is across industry, organization, and many of us have a primary job of being a parent, and same rules apply. Mm? So, um, I'll tell you, like, again, this, I almost feel like I'm making this worse, but I'm just going to tell you this real quick. So, cardiovascular risk signals. So, reviews suggest burnout may increase cardiovascular disease risk through. Okay, yeah, so that's good. Nervous system is overloaded, working memory, attention, empathy, all of those things drop. And when I think that we are the first generation of people who are really writing scripts around work-home balance and work-life balance, I guess. Like that was such a buzzword, I would say, like 15 years ago. Like when I started in this world, like what's your work-life balance, which is such bullshit. Because I will tell you, as an entrepreneur, much of my work, I mean, it's 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night here. And I have somebody at a hockey practice. I'm working now. Some of my most important work happens at 10 o'clock at night when I'm prepping for the next day. Do you understand? Like this is no longer a 9 to 5 kind of a deal for the vast majority of us. And the ability to set limits on that is sometimes like we came from a generation that taught us if you rest, you're lazy. So that's a problem. We're now in this generation where we're going to have to rest harder than we work. And that doesn't feel right. That's not what my dad said to me. He said, you got to make hay while the sun shone. True, because the sun shone for 8 hours. You had to make hay. You know, napping. Get up. Because when the sun went down, you could rest. Now, when the sun goes down, that's when I work. And it's this new experience of how do we sort of incorporate some of these things, which I think is really fascinating. Okay, so one more point to rip your soul out, and then we're going to get up the other side. Research on extended work availability links it to work family conflict and poor health outcomes, meaning the cost is relational, not just occupational. When I start to feel like I'm exhausted and overwhelmed and I can't land on Aaron when I come home because there's a crisis with a dairy cow, now I'm mad, right? What do I need him for anyway? And now we're talking about systemic shifts that happen. Not, I mean, again, we can get into, I can't wait to do one on marriage these days because this is a whole other strategy that we're going to have to talk about. But it's really, I don't want us to underestimate the impact that happens in a place that we usually siloed. Work is work, home is home. No ma'am, no sir, no human. They very much interact. And so the desire to get our nervous system back online is like, is not selfish. It is absolutely a strategy to suck more out of this life. Okay. So this section is your not doing less, doing different together. Okay. This is not about doing less. It's not going to save you to just put more brakes and shit. It's about doing it differently from a nervous system perspective. All right. So here's in your outline, I just said individual tools. So quick, usable, not fluffy. Okay, that's what I wanted. I wanted just like, here's how do we do it? Okay. And basically, what I'm talking about is how do I get your prefrontal cortex back online? When you get overwhelmed and everybody is chippy and the kids are ungrateful and you resent the fuck out of everything and everybody, then we start to lose access to the best parts of us. Normal? Yes. Understandable in this season? Absolutely. Now, what do we do about it? Number one, and I've laid this out for you, and like when I lay this out for you, then you can go back through it. So name the lane. Am I exhausted, cynical, or ineffective? Okay. So which of the three is sort of the loudest for you? Am I exhausted? Am I cynical? Or am I just being ineffective in this moment? Right. Most of the time they come together is as one. And I can answer this week. I would say, if I think about the things that are heaviest on my heart right now, I'm just really cynical that I'm going to be able to make a difference in it. And am I just really tired? Am I just really, can we ask ourselves some of those questions? Two, um, I want you to consider, and this you're gonna, most people hate this, but it really comes back to the basics. I call it a stress cycle. So movement, breath, laughter, crying, connection. The Nagoski framing is so beautiful. So I put a link to the Nagoski book on burnout, which you won't have time to read if you're anything like me, but just in case you do, it's in there. How are we getting back to the basics? I want you to think about this, okay? Before you go into your office, that is, if you work as a mama, if you work from your home computer, if you work in an office space, I want you to consider 30 seconds of still. It's in your car, it's in your office space, it's in your wherever before you step into this holy land that you're going to do some great stuff in. 30 seconds and you come back home. All I'm indicating, or all we're indicating to your nervous system is that she's going to be okay. He's going to be okay in this system. They're going to be okay in this system. You're going to do the best you can with what you got on any given day, and it's enough. We need to, and it's up to you, but we need to be able to put that in a time where we've never had to do this before. This wasn't necessary before. Okay. And it's necessary now because we step in and we don't stop, especially in the education space, especially in the healthcare space. How many times have you heard when people say, I don't even pee? I go through the whole day and I don't remember eating. I don't remember having a minute. I don't remember, and so it's like, my gracious, what is happening in that nervous system the entire day? And these are not small issues. Like, I can't figure out how to tie my shoe. It's like, I think I want to die. Are you meeting this criteria? Is somebody washing you? Like, all of these things are sometimes really, really heavy stuff. And then you have a watch on and you're getting buzzed by your own personal child. And then you have a phone and your personal parent is like, I don't know how to get curling on TSN. First of all, why are you by yourself? Second, do you understand? So it's not just like it's not the work in and of itself that is draining us. It is the constant in it. It's like the cortisol shooters that are coming in at every. So when I say sit in your goddamn car with no music and hand over heart, and you just remember how much you matter to this world and to me and to everybody else, 30 seconds, we can do that. Let's give her a shot. What do we got to lose? Okay. You're going to get one more problem stacked in there today? No, thank you. Take the 30 seconds, give her back to me, and come on home. What always lands it better is if I'm talking to my ancestors, if I'm talking to my dad, if I'm talking to my best friend who's not here anymore. That makes it real. Then I'm not just doing it for me. Somebody needs to give me something. Somebody needs to talk to me. I'm in there in the car going like, where, Dad, Ria, give me a line. Okay. So that brings it all home to whoever you are, whether you believe somebody's there or not. I mean, start shouting random shit like, hey, Helen. So if there's any extra grandmothers just floating around up there, give me a line. Okay. Any retired dead teachers? I mean, call in the people. Anything that sort of gives you a little bit. And some people feel silly doing this. You're out in your truck checking cows. I mean, that's sort of like the best place to do these things. Okay. Protect recovery like an appointment. Okay. So it's like in your gym regime. This may be a bad example, but like, where is it that starts to happen? And I want to tell you the most critical thing for me is that I have had to start slow because I am such a rebel. You're like, let's do this every night. You're going to like listen to some meditation every night. I'm like, get bent. I am not. You can't tell me what to do. Okay. And then that's a problem. The intention is to do better for me, but you're going to tell me to do that every night. I'm not going to do it. So listen, here's full permission. You don't have to do this every night. You do this as often as you can, as it feels right for you. Okay. As often as it feels right for you. So even if you can think about one time a week before you go to bed at night, you're going to take 5 minutes. 2 days a week before you step into the office or your client or your workspace, you're going to take 30 seconds and just set it on your phone. Because this is what I do. I'm like, 30 seconds, here's my 30 seconds time. Woo! Okay, back in it. Here we go. Okay, so I literally have to put the little timer on my phone. And I think to myself every time, 30 seconds is a fuck of a long time. Huh? I got shit to do here. But even when you do that a little bit on purpose, what you're indicating to your nervous system is that we're okay. We're in this together. Give it a second. Okay. Um, minimum, yeah. So 10 minutes of downshift twice a day is what the data tells me. Okay. And so for any of you that have a commute, this is excellent because it's built in. What some of us do during a commute is that we use it to do more work. So we get a podcast on. We start to put our, emails on the audio. We start to like sort of go through the things. If you can find a space and 1 day a week, drive home with nothing, quiet. And for most of your nervous systems, they're going to freak out. They're going to get bored. It's going to feel like a waste of time. Okay. Try it one time. Even if you're not a commuter, if you have any time alone in your car, try to have nothing in there just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just see what happens when you can create a space of still. Create a shutdown ritual. So 2 minutes so work doesn't follow you home. This is also you, if there was a camera outside of my home that was hooked up to all of your lives, you would see me jumping in my garage. There's a very important, if you've ever seen an animal shake off a terror response, okay? So dogs will shiver, okay? Many animals do this to regulate their nervous system. It's their wisdom beyond belief, okay? And we would do this when I would see 7 or 8 clients a day. I would say to all of, in our clinic, I'd be like, come in the kitchen and jump and shake. Just get it out of your nervous system. And that feels weird and bizarre. So you don't need to do this if you don't want to, but I will tell you it works. It's an indication that I can leave it. I even think about in my garage when I'm shaking everything off, I even envision me just putting things down for a minute. That who I'm stepping into is likely more important than who I left. Not because they don't matter, not because I don't adore the work and the people that I get to serve, what a privilege it is every single day. I won't be good for them or the people I step into if there isn't that sense of reset. We never had to do this before, guys. Because 2 generations ago, they had to walk from the field into the house. 2 generations ago, many of us didn't drive. So you had an opportunity to disconnect from the things that you did. That same human operating system is functioning in this world today, where there's very little opportunity to get back in a sense of regulation. Okay. So a fast reset. I'm going to give you this right now. This is Huberman stuff, which again is controversial in this moment, but the data is still true. I want you to do this with me. Listen to how I do this breathing. It's 2 intakes quick and then a long out. Do it right now. Excellent. Why scientifically this is important is you're filling your lungs with much more space than you typically would in the run of the day. In the run of a day, especially when we're overwhelmed, we're breathing like this. And sometimes we sigh, but rarely do we do this. So before I'm going to have a hard conversation with somebody, before I need to give some feedback, sometimes I do that real quick, 2 ins and an out. Tell me when you do this, what it feels like. This is the audience participation, but I'll tell you, it feels like crying. And rarely do we start to sob or get to a point where we get to that space of, if you've ever seen a kid, if you've ever had to give somebody heck and they're completely dysregulated, I always know my indicator for them coming back home to me is they do this. I just didn't know what to do, Mom. Okay. It is such a universal experience. And if we can create that, even in a moment, it's a bit of a shift to your nervous system that, okay, come back online. Okay. So it's like, that's the quick fix if I can sort of incorporate that every once in a while, but the other ones are in your notes for you. Okay, so and then I also put in there some team and culture tools so that this is kind of like burnout proofing, which feels like a bit of an overpromise, but it's just like I just want you to consider um the I gave you the quote of Maslow and Leader's 6 areas of work life. So when I was doing some research, I was like, who's figured this out the best? Sort of as a practical team audit. So workload, where is it unsustainable? What can be paused and prioritized? So if I think about this for my team or anything that's going on, I had a conversation with somebody who is just extremely overwhelmed this week. There's been a big influx of stress in the life. There's been lots of stuff that's going on. And so we just sort of said, okay, what can go? Because something's got to. And it's like I'm in this university course. It's gonna, okay, is this the thing that we can put aside? Yes. Okay, Monday it is. Is there an intake that we can do that just sort of prioritizes some of those things? Because sometimes many of us just live in the abyss that it's always this, it's always that. There's always other things. Control. Where do people have zero autonomy? Where do you have 100% control? And when I think we think about this, in the team, the culture, this is, what effort is going unseen. I really like to think about this in our teams. I often get people to answer this question: why am I lucky to have you? And if you can answer that question about the position you are playing right now, why is your team lucky to have you? It is often a very difficult question for some of us to answer. And if we do this in a group, task, people are like, I don't know, I don't know. And generally everybody else can be like, I'll tell you why she's great or why he's great or why they're great. And this exercise is really not for your team as much as it is for you. What do you bring into the table right now? And what are they like? Why are they lucky to have you? And many of us will default to like, well, they're not because I'm overwhelmed and I'm exhausted. Why are they lucky to have you? And I mean, the list is exceptionally longer than you would ever dream it to be. And I think sometimes sinking into that a little bit brings me back home. When I'm like, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. Oh, I wish I would have said this, or I didn't do this right, or all that thing. Okay. So again, I think that's an important reset. Um, where are we asking people to do work that violates why they came? Are we really resetting as an organization? Are we really clear on what we're doing here and why? What do we value the most? And it's some of those really, heavy questions that I think are sometimes tricky to ask, but I think it's important. So again, I gave you a couple of things here. So scene check-in at the start of a meeting. What's on your load today? There's some behavioral indications that I tend to shy away from, but I thought it might be easy just to sort of put in here. Like, are we all on red? Good to know. Or anybody on yellow? And then people are always like scared to say they're on yellow because they're like, shit, then I'm going to get all red stuff. So you just want to be clear about sort of like what's going on in the temperature. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I've always made as a leader is I stopped asking because I was scared of the answer. And I think this is the issue that I think a lot of us do. Like, how are we doing really? Is a really, really important question to ask. How are you really? And I think that some of the greatest arguments Marty and I have ever had, or if I think about, when we had a much bigger team, for fear of rocking the boat, for fear of like, not being able to answer it or feel like somebody's going to leave or tell me I was a shitty leader. I was like, I just wouldn't ask. And I really remember one prominent, time where I was like, we had a breakdown over something and, Marty's crying, I'm crying. And she's like, Jody, this just isn't possible. Like, you think you want to write another book and go on another tour and do all these kind of things. Like, we have children, we have lives, like we have buddy, I so believe in this dream. I just like this timeline is never going to work. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And she said, you never asked. And I was like, cool. Like, you create such a great system of people that are all in all the time and, believe and want to do well and never want to let you down. And then you forget to check in with each other. And I think it's like, sometimes we don't feel like we can handle anything more. So do this in parts. But I think what's really critical is in this process and why I set it out this way is you matter first and then your team. It's like this process of go in and then go out and put that on relentless repeat. Go in, right? Back to this 30-second check-in before you go in, the deep breath in the car, the shutting it down a bit early, making sure you're getting at least a few good hours of sleep, reading a book instead of watching your phone. All of that shit happens first, and then you give it away. And you put that on relentless repeat. Go in, go out on repeat. Go in, go out. More ways that we, I'll just back it up a little bit. To go in is really like that nervous system reset stuff we talked about, right? Are you chewing gum? Are you sipping water? Are you eating? Are you having a snack? Are you doing those things? Are you on your break, sending a text to somebody that's going to fill your soul? Is there a chance that, you have a system with somebody that is like, I'm losing it. And we got you. I got you. Listen. And if nothing else, we got Bad Bunny. Is there people that can really bring you back home in a time where you sort of need that the most? And I think that role clarity is really, really, really critical. I had a couple of hard conversations this week about just what we're responsible for, what I'm responsible for in any given situation. And my goodness, I would love to undo systemic oppression. I would love to do multiple cases of abuse and neglect and trauma. I would love to be that good. And it is always comes back to this for me. Next best right kind thing. In my little corner, in my little, respectable role, this is my job. And I'm going to do it as well as I can. And the rest don't score. So how do we sort of come back to that place and for your nervous system to hear those things, either in your thoughts, written out, you talking to yourself as you go for a walk, during your fireside chat, if you're chatting to your people, anything like that, that sort of really resets that piece, I think is really important. And then, one of the things I'm going to talk a lot about, I think, in the next season is about repair. I think it's going to be necessary, and we are very, very bad at it. Something goes wrong, we shift. It wasn't a good meeting. We're just like, we're good. We're good. Everybody's good. Good. You're good. Okay. Yeah. Good. Fist bump. I don't know what's wrong with her. We're good. Everybody's fine. Yeah. This happens a lot in marriages. And so I've really pulled a lot from Gottman stuff. And, it's the greatest predictor of couples that make it and couples that don't isn't how much you fight or how much sex you have or how much money you make. It's your capacity to say these words. I'm sorry. And they cannot, in work and at home, be followed by a but because you erase it. And when you have the capacity to say, I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm back now. I wasn't in a good space yesterday. I'm back here now. Um, it doesn't mean you condone or excuse the other person's behavior. I want to be very clear about that. It's like when I'm talking about working with kids, you collect and then you direct. You bring everybody back online the best that you can, and then you teach. Then you whatever. Okay. It's that two-step process that becomes really, really critical. And psychological safety is something that we talk a lot about. It's a buzzword in the organizational space right now. And for me, what we're talking about in psychologically safe environments is that the nervous system is regulated enough to access the best parts of them. Maybe not all the time, not every day, because we live in such, chaos sometimes, but it's like that we have access to that some of the time. So, again, burnout isn't a weakness, it's a signal. And we don't fix burnout by asking individuals to be tougher. We fix it by making teams safer, clearer, and more connected. If the big people aren't okay, if those of us doing the work aren't okay, then the people we serve, the systems don't stand a chance. You matter more to me than anybody you serve. And it will come back to this in every organization we work for. Let's hang on to where we are at in this moment and do the best we can to show up in the best ways that we can. And then we give it away like it's our job. The most important people we work for are the ones we go home to. Okay. And I think that's the thing I'll get back to again and again and again. Now um, in your handouts, there's a couple of resources and books if if you need for your team or anything you want to follow up with, because I always know that we don't get to everything we need to or want to. I also then now I know we have a half an hour for questions, so I want to make sure that we leave some time for that. I see Mar, you just sent that over to me, so that's awesome. I'm just going to bring it up. Feel free to sort of add those in the chat. Des, you can come online with me too if there's anything that you want me to answer specifically, but I'm going to just go through some of the questions that were sent in so far. Sound good? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. what supports actually help educators and staff recover, sustain energy, and feel effective beyond self-care messaging? Okay. So again, I really want to be clear that I would say in the last decade, there's been an attempt to address a crisis that we see happening. Okay. That people are burning out. I had this great talk with an administrator today. We're going to step into their EAs and their school system in the next month. And I said, I think one of the things that we're talking a lot about is pulling people out at the bottom of the river. Okay. So this one's exhausted. We're trying to put them on mental health leave. We're trying to give them a stress break. We're trying to, take away the workload. We got senior leaders going, it's okay. It's okay. I got it. I got it. I got it. And we're not recognizing what's happening at the top of the river, right? We're pulling people out without incorporating some of the things that are going to protect the human operating system at the top of the lane. Okay. So we tried this about 10 years ago. We implemented this idea of self-care. Okay. Which is where we came up with things like bubble baths and reading a book and frolicking in the meadow. Okay. All of that makes a lot of great sense if you understand the nervous system behind it. If you're drinking kale with your shoulders like this, motherfucking, you know, waste of time. If you're going to yoga, reviewing all of the emails you got to get done in your downward dog, she not restoring you. Okay, you're madder than when you started. Okay, and I get on the Peloton sometimes and I have to be very careful what I watch because I get into some goddamn show and I'm not even I'm not it's not good for my nervous system. You understand? So I find sometimes where I can't watch, and so like doing watching somebody teach me how to do weight. So I'm there strength training because I'm going to be a tough bitch at 50. I can't watch anything. She's like, watch your form. I'm like, you got it. Tunde. And I'm focused on what's happening here instead of like just numbing on something else just to sort of keep my legs spinning for 30 minutes. You understand? So, where in the day are we really sort of doing the difference between self-care and people ask me this all the time, why isn't self-care working? Because it's really a nervous system reset. And for some people, it is going for a walk. For some people, I mean, again, it is all what works. I really want you to pay attention. Actually, do this with me right now. If you can get a focus point in your world, if you close your eyes and you can imagine the place where you feel the safest, and in your mind's eye, you can write this out later too. It can be, I'll give you some examples, which usually tend to derail you, but I'm just going to give them to you anyways for the purpose of this. It can be a meadow. It can be a hockey rink. It can be a beach. It can be somewhere you've been or somewhere you just hope to be one day. And what I really want you to notice is everything. I want you to notice who's there or not. I want you to notice what you're hearing, what you're smelling, even if there's a taste like salty air. If you can feel the ground on your feet, or if you're sitting down, if you can feel the grass or the whatever's underneath you, notice what it's like to sink into that place, that point of focus. And if you can spend some time here, just even a little bit. I mean, for me, it's out walking in the pasture and I could see the cows. I know where my kids are, but they're certainly not with me. Okay. I can hear the birds. I know that it's close to supper time. I think supper's going to be ready. All of that is already done. And everybody I love and I know is safe. And if I can feel that in my body, that is the feeling that I need to know even exists anymore. And I call that coming home. And if you can actually get a sense of what coming home feels like in your body, and you can revisit that as oftentimes as you can, but I really, digging into it as much as you can is important. What does it look like? What does it sound like? You don't have to share this with anybody. Just do this in and of yourself. Write it down if you want. But what does that feel like? Where is there a safe place for you on this planet? And if there isn't, then that's something, for sure that we talk about, or that we, connect you so you can talk about a bit further, because oftentimes we can't even find that place. But if you can find a little bit of that space and notice what happens in your body when you shift into that. And it's really interesting because a lot of this stuff around even, trauma work is really recentering the body and understanding that you're no longer at the scene, that you're no longer in the midst of it every single day, all day. And oftentimes we replay the events, we get stuck at the moments. We should have said this to that mother, yeah. And so we're in it all the time. And so again, it's like, do you have a place where you can sort of go in your head to just sort of remind yourself that in the sanctity of your home or your car or your wherever, that there is enough opportunity to sort of come back to that safe place. So I think that's the difference between self-care, that is fundamentally sort of on the surface and not seeming to work, to really then getting into this place, really paying attention to who indicates to your body it's safe. Who are you following on social media? I mean, like people you don't even know. So your body will start to react to certain people when you come upon your scroll. Pay close attention to that. And I want to be clear, this is not about blocking and blessing people because this is the problem with social media. We only keep people that we agree with. If there's somebody that can teach you from an alternate perspective, they should be within your feed. Okay. But I want you to pay attention to who you follow, sure, you might really like this particular influencer, but you feel like a piece of shit every time she comes up because she's so fucking cute. She's in creams, you know? She got family pictures. Everything looks great. She's drinking a goddamn smoothie. Okay. You also need the disasters where you're like, oh, yes, ma'am, girl. Uh-huh. Also, can we be in a place where, we're sort of creating systems where people who struggle historically to sort of make sense of hard things, who don't have an emotional language? I spend a lot of time in the world of agriculture. How do we sort of notice where we're feeling seen, safe, heard, included? All of those things I think really matter. And again, pay close attention what happens to your nervous system when you are in the presence of certain people. Your time is very limited. And I think historically we start to spend time with people that we outgrow, and it changes the way that we show up in the world. So pay close attention to people who feed your soul, and spend a little more time with them, in a season where we have this very limited and precious days. That's becoming really important to me in my 50s. How do I spend time with the people that really make me want to be better, not remind me that it's like this is hopeless? Oh yeah, one more note on hope. Again, I'll just reiterate this idea that I have never, ever, ever, ever had so much hope in humanity than I do today. I am fearful about many things and the language and all of those things, but I'll tell you, what I have control over in this moment, I'm all in. 2 feet. Having hard conversations with my kids, waving at people in my community, trying to be as kind as I can to people at the hockey rink. That's where I get challenged the most, I got to tell you. And I got to really remember that showing up in those spaces in a way that is great. And I don't always. I mean, just ask anybody in the local central Alberta region, this past weekend. But how do we step into these places where we find ourselves giving out compliments? Uh, Waving at people. And it's like the go in is all of that nervous system regulation. The go out is how are we giving it away? And if you can't even fathom giving it away to anybody else, then I don't need you to go there. I need you to come all the way back to go in again and again and again, especially if we're super depleted in that place. Okay. How can organizations normalize rest boundaries and asking for help without career consequences or stigma? Such a great question. And I'll tell you what, this is the challenge of this generation. Are we being leaders? Are we supporting leaders? Are we having conversations with colleagues that support this idea? And this is a shift that's on all of us in this moment because we are up against two very different ways of operating. We are typically in many senior leadership positions, particularly in hierarchical, patriarchal organizations. We have one ideal on how we run the system, right? Currently, one of the largest countries on this planet is being ran in a way that would suggest might is right. And it becomes really difficult when we are in a nervous system overwhelm to believe that to be true. And so this shift in understanding how we normalize this and not be scared people are lazy or taking advantage of it, becomes a real stop point for us. And I would say what is so critical is you're not maybe necessary to be, one-on-one with all of your staff. I always talk about this. Who's a group of people that are closest to you that you can start to build a movement with? Who are the people next to you on your team, in your organization that have some hope and belief? Pull them together. And remember, relationship knows no hierarchy. This could be the custodian, one EA, and your vice principal of head of literacy. This could be the VP and the clerical staff that are there 2 days a week. This could be like you know what, you get my point, huh? Where is it that you can start to be having some positive conversations about like here's what I love about these kids. Here's why I love being a mortgage broker. Do you know it's never been a better time to be in agriculture because we grew up with the only thing that matters. Playing a game of crib over a cup of coffee. Sealing a deal with a handshake. We know how to do it, boys. Okay? Let's do more of that. And I think it's those kind of conversations that if there's anybody that's willing, interested, able to sort of be with you in that space, I'm not saying you're not going to get overwhelmed or mad or exhausted, but Marty is one of the reasons why I'm just getting started because there's so many days where I don't believe it's worth it. And there's so many days where she gets tired. There's so many days when Jeff, I mean, we have an extended team that's, phenomenal. And how do you sort of build in some of those places that tend to fuel you a little bit? Because it's going to be hard, right? Okay. How can districts move from reactive supports to proactive structural solutions that prevent burnout before it escalates? So again, again, some of these questions overlap, but I want you to slow down and come all the way back first to going in. You know how to do this. You absolutely know how to do this when you're not feeling responsible for the entire district. You absolutely know how to do this when you're not feeling overwhelmed and isolated and like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. We know how to do good things. We absolutely know how to do it. And what I want is just to access that a little more often. I want that gift. And you don't have to fly to the mountains and frolic with goats in a yoga class to access it. I promise you. I mean, ideally, if you can fit a retreat like that in, I would highly recommend. But most of the time, the vast majority of us do not have a large accessibility to mountains and goats in the same place. Okay. So what I want you to think about is just small things that really start to refuel how just amazing you are. And there is an inundation of places that I try to, including, so the fireside chats. My friend Rachel Milkey sent me this week. So a list of affirmations that show up on my desk every single morning, right? I pick a different one every day. How are we in this place of like really doing the very best we can to fuel this soul, knowing that, listen, we're replaceable. We're replaceable. And people say, we've talked about this all the time. My son and I talked about this the other day. He's like, well, what about like, what if somebody doesn't? What if AI takes away all your stuff and everybody can just access it and everybody just takes it and uses it? I said, honey, that's the point. Maybe not from an AI perspective, but like none of us get out of here alive. Like we want to do good to the world, put good into the world, into other people, so that they pass it on. If we're hoarding our whatevers like that, nobody gets out of here alive. Here's a tip for free, huh? This is a job. Just be nice don't be a dick. That's really what most people pay me to say. Okay, just try your best. Okay, don't be a dick, and you'll go far in this world. That's how fucking low the bar is right now. Okay. And again, we are often busy looking at everybody else who's being dickish. And you know what we don't do a very good job of? Yeah. What am I bringing to the table? Why are they lucky to have you? Not because you're the fault, not because you're a problem, not because we need to fix it, but because, Nicole, you're awesome. But because it's like so much of this, you matter to me. The people who love you are the most important in the planet. And you matter so much to so many. I just mean that from the bottom of my heart. Just sitting with some broken hearts this week just reminded me of that. You matter so much to so many in this very fleeting space. And so when you come on back to that part of it, when you come on back to you, sometimes it's easier to access what really matters. What would it look like to design public school systems around sustainability rather than endurance? Okay, I've got tons of ideas about this. What would it look like? It would look like I want to measure three things. I want to measure staff sickness. I want to measure suspension rates, and I want to measure dropouts. Okay, so I need a baseline, and then I'm going to come back to how much systemically am I supporting my educators. I would advocate vehemently, and I've talked about this, in at United Nations. We do not need to fund kids further. We need to fund educators. I want you to take every amount of all the Chromebooks you got, okay, pool them together, sell them on Kijiji, okay, all the extra ones, okay, and buy meat trays relentlessly, relentless meat trays, okay. Throw out some Starbucks gift cards every now and again. Just how do we let people know they matter? And I always say this to maybe you've heard this quote before, but like, you should see how fast I can get a kid to skate when I know the name of their dog. It really, really is that simple when we talk about this from an employee standpoint. When we start to know, and sometimes it won't feel like enough. People say to me, I do this all the time. I'm really kind to people, and she's still an asshole. Okay. So then it's time to figure out, is this a right fit? Is it too big, too much right now? And that's okay too. But sometimes we're scared to have those conversations because what if they quit? What if it's not enough? What if they leave? Clear is kind. Clear is kind. And I think it's like, I always, again, I think the rule that never fails me is be kind and don't tolerate bullshit in that order. Okay. So it's not about just making sure everybody's lovely and they all get gift cards and we're throwing flowers around like it's your job, making shit up. Oh, we're so happy to have you. Like, no, I want to collect and then direct, collect and then direct. Okay. And oftentimes this is never an end game, which is why being in a position in any team right now is so exhausting and will be for the remainder of our careers because we don't arrive. We have good moments, we have good seasons, we have great teams, we have struggles that just when things are going well, somebody's parent gets sick and we lose access to them, or somebody gets a tough case and they get severely thrown off their game and we lose them, or they get headhunted by somebody else and you think that everybody else is better than you. Like, all of those things are going to continue to happen, right? And what does never change is your capacity to regulate and come back home. That's what nobody will take away from me. And sometimes it's so much harder to get back there than others, right? And the season which we're living is making it particularly difficult to get back there. And so that's why doing the best we can to sort of get there. That's the thing that matters the most to me. Where do we need fewer expectations, not more resources? And how do we have the courage to name that? Well, I think you just did. So where do we have fewer expectations? I think here's a mistake we make with fewer expectations. Okay. If I take this off of, and I'll give you a school system example, but I can talk about this in any organization. If we start to expect less from students, okay. So if we stop focusing on outcomes and focusing more on relationships, what if we're the worst school on the planet? Like, what if like all of our math scores tank? What if? What's gonna happen? They're gonna stop funding you? No. Who's gonna be mad about that? What if you started focusing more on relationship and everybody wanted to show up a little bit more? What if they had more access to learning? What? What if it was funny? Oh my God, stop it now. What if you learned how to do a TikTok? Shut up. You don't say. What if you learned nothing all day but got the whole class to teach you how to do a TikTok? Shit. Who do you think's coming the next day to see Mrs. Carrington doing a TikTok? Everybody. And they're all on the snap face that night going like, shit, show up tomorrow, Zach. She crazy. Huh? There is some safety in joy, which means I am accessing the best parts of people. And that's where I'm getting some of that connection piece. And I think that, it feels silly. We can't do this all the time. No, 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 no. Nobody said No, nobody said you had to. Okay. But how do we just sort of really think about showing genuine interest in other people? How do we think about, what it means to acknowledge other people, not even in any formalized way? How are we really good at, taking that 30 seconds in our car and realizing that everybody's got so much on their plates right now? Not your job to fix it, but you acknowledge it. You not only change a life, you save it. If I told you when you wake up tomorrow, you have the capacity to not only change a life, you could save one, would you do it? And the vast majority would be like, put me in, and because it's not going to cost you anything. You just got to make eye contact with somebody tomorrow. You just got to give them a compliment tomorrow. I mean, don't even have to talk to them if you're that in a bad way. You can just do like this in the parking lot. Huh? And in fact, you don't even have to get crazy. You don't have to wave. You can just give him, this is my husband. He waves like this. You don't even have to take your hands off the steering. In fact, if you don't even want to use any of your appendage, you could go like this. Give Neil a 1-2. This is a Viking Alberta special. Okay, you're walking down the hallway. Mm, mm. Sometimes you give the point, don't do the guns, but if you give a point, you know, good to see you. They don't know what to do. They think you've been drinking. Do you see why I have so much hope in the land? Because one indication, if you were to walk into your place of work tomorrow, even if it's your home with your children, whatever that looks like, and you're like, hey, look at you today. Huh? I like that showing up. You're here. Imagine you said that to your husband tomorrow. You said that to your children tomorrow. Good to see ya. All right. Let's take on the day, should we? People are like, what the fuck? That's all I want. You want to know why? Because you just pulled on their prefrontal cortex. You're basically a mobile mental health unit. See what I mean? Okay. Okay. What is one structural change, large or small, that we could make work in public education more humane right now? I would say incorporate more joy. I would say do your very best to find the silly in the day. I would say bring more snacks. I would say I won't. I was gonna say hide more beverages, but don't do that. Don't do anything illegal because then somebody's gonna come after me. But like, really, I think like some of the best conversations are around how do we debrief after, um, mm, that sort of thing is really critical. I'm going to take a one from the notes here too. Angela says, is resetting the nervous system based on the five senses and your connection to them? It can be. From a neurophysiological perspective, what I'm doing is trying to get you out of fight or flight from your limbic system. Okay. So the brain, when it feels like it's in danger, will flip everything you know out of your way. You don't need to know the PIN number to your bank card. You don't need to know how to make cabbage rolls. Okay. All the stuff you've learned in your life. You don't know how to take it. You don't need to know how to take a golf swing at that point. And so your body protects you. It's like, get that shit out of the way. Run. This is not safe anymore. Oh, wait. We overheated the camera, but I'm still here. Okay. Um, oh God, but I need to show you. Okay. No, I'll just tell you. So the idea is getting that nervous system back online is really what we're doing. And in any way that is possible that brings you back to the moment, like chewing and swallowing. You can't chew and swallow with a flip lid. It's neurobiologically impossible. Okay. You'll choke. So oftentimes when I say I'm going to I'm going to give my husband a drink of water, I'm going to say to my kids, here, let's have a snack. Before we talk about this, I have some kid that's just destroyed something or some adult that's told me to fuck off. And we're like, trying to figure out what's going on in a season. Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink of water. I hate water. Do you got any juice? Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, shoot. I don't have juice, but I have water. Can I get ice? Yes. Okay. The second you can chew and swallow, you will often see a deep breath, which tells me two things. The prefrontal cortex is back online and I'm safer, and now so are they. Where you get dysregulated and harmful is when your lid is flipped. You won't hurt anybody when your lid is on. Okay. Um, oh, shit. Um, Okay, so that's what's really critically important to me in those systems. Woohoo! When we do those things, okay. So what I'm saying is like drinking, eating, all of those things brings that frontal cortex back on. Buddha said, "Be where your feet are." Yeah, And it's really talking about the importance of presence. Be where your feet are. So all of you, some of you are watching in your office, sometimes you're at your home tonight. Just be where your feet are. And do you know how hard it is to be where your feet are when you're on your phone? Because where you are is you're watching whoever's saying whatever. And we lose sort of this process. So it's not that you can't be on your phones or use social media or any of those things. Like, no, 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 no. All I want you to think about is how we intervene in some moments to bring us back to where our feet are. Okay. How do you address ways to manage compassion fatigue working in palliative EOL care? Would like to ensure that I'm supporting care team to mitigate burnout, but most notable in this regard. Yes. Okay. So compassion fatigue is a very it's evolved after the concept of burnout, and it really noted people who care for humans, which ironically, once we get into this burnout place, is everybody. And compassion fatigue has been saved historically for medical personnel, where you watch people die or you carry on to some of their medical needs. How do we stop caring, or what happens when we stop caring for people? And it's really just the fundamental piece of burnout. Okay, so when we back it up, and to this point, when we back it up to everything that we've talked about tonight, compassion fatigue is really about regulating the nervous system too. And then when we have went in and regulated, then it's about starting to really talk about how we were never meant to do any of this alone, how holy it is, how we keep notes and memories of the people, the times that people reminded us how grateful they are for the work that we do. And I think it's like really sort of drawing on some of those things, making that a practice, even in meetings of like, who were our bests? Give me a time when. This is sometimes when I, even in some really hard trauma work, tell me a time that they were lucky to have you. It's that question again. Who was your favorite patient? Take me back there. If we incorporate that into meetings, sometimes it like evokes in the body a release of oxytocin, which brings me back to that best parts of like, oh, I can do this. You know, everybody is not as overwhelmed and exhausted as I think they are. Okay. So it's like that sense that is sometimes quite helpful. Okay. How does perimenopause or menopause make this worse? Listen, I do that's a whole other fucking episode. Okay. The unfairness of this shit show that happens in this season. Okay. Um, I think how I think about this often is when emotional regulation means my lid is on. I am most regulated when a couple of things are on board. Like I've slept well, I've got some fluids on board, I've maybe moved my body in the last 24 hours. My kids are doing okay. I remember why I married Aaron. Like, and very few times do all those things line up at the same time, but when they do, I'm quite regulated. And I'll tell you what, I'm amazing. When I am regulated, you want to be married to me. Okay. When I am regulated, I have three of the luckiest kids on the planet. When I am regulated, you want to work for me. I'm fucking good. When I am dysregulated, whoo, whoo, you understand? This isn't a question of capacity. This is access to that matters. And I am dysregulated frequently because I live in the same world you do. I have three teenagers, three, and a farmer for a husband. Okay. Now, blessed, lucky, namaste, all the things. I do not, I understand my privilege. I try to most times. And it's like I feel very blessed and grateful. And I try to be in that place as much as I can. Also, and I think normalizing some of that, and I think for the first time in history, we are the first generation of women that have had a conversation about perimenopause. Like no systems that have come before me. I didn't know my mother had a hysterectomy. We did not talk about this. I mean, you did a what? You had a what? You how? Actually, you know what? This is even true. I didn't even know she had a kid. I didn't even know that my parents had a child. Okay, this is how much we didn't talk about things, let alone whether she had a uterus out. But perimenopause is another issue that we've just assumed is part of aging and we're going to be okay. It's not. It completely derails our capacity to be great and do great. And so when we name it, we tame it. We find solidarity and connection and community and we normalize. We're not going crazy. The hot flashes, the irritability, those kind of things that come in, the sleeplessness, the too much, like all of that stuff. Okay, let's put that into context and what do we do to even treat her better than she's ever been treated before in a season where the expectation is she's ready for pasture. Right? No, thank you. I'm just getting started. Don't try that on me, perimenopause. Okay, I think we went over. Okay. Again, yeah, what if your job is a mom? Listen, that's the most important job on the planet. So everything I'm talking about tonight, moms, dads, aunties, uncles, we're just walking each other home. Okay? And nobody gets out of here alive. Your uh greatest thank you for showing up tonight. I hope you took something out of this 90 minutes together. It's always a joy for me to sink in to people who believe in the stuff that we talk about around here. I would love all of your feedback. And I just want you to know that wherever you are serving humans on this globe right now, it is some of the holiest work on the planet. Nothing more important than you. What you do is never more important than you and the people who love you the most. Sink in long and hard into those things you go in, and then you give away whatever you got and you put that on relentless repeat. That is how we change the world. I promise you, there is no other way. It does not get any more complex than that. It does not. You go in, you go out, and you put it on relentless repeat. Okay. So thank you. I see you. I honor everything you do. People are so lucky to have you, including me. And I'll see you back here next time. Okay. Mwah. Good night, everybody.